motivation. Always be a gym. Hello, friends. Welcome to this week's episode of Great Employees Matter, the podcast that focuses on helping employees move from average to great, to be the best self that they can be, to be accountable to themselves, for themselves. And we also work with businesses to teach them how to value, accelerate, motivate, appreciate, and really take care of their most valuable asset, which is, in fact, their employees. So today we have you're going to love this guest. And this is a little different from some of our podcasts in that we have an expert in the industry that directly works with both employees and employers as a business. He is the co-founder and president of a company named EWH University. EWH University is an entity that trains employers and employees how to be the best that they can possibly be. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kobe. He'll bring us in and introduce you to Mr. Joseph Hastreiter.
And first, I'm going to introduce you to us at Great Employees Matter. My name is Kobe. That was Jimmy that you just heard, and we got Lloyd on standby on this show. So now that you are properly introduced to us, thank you for joining us. Every Tuesday at 2 o'clock, we do this live show where we help employees and employers recognize how to have a great relationship together. And today is going to be no exception with the show. So please like, subscribe, share, enjoy, engage, and let's get into it. I want to go ahead start by welcoming Mr. Joseph. How you doing today? I'm not even going to attempt to say your last name because I'm messing that up all day. So we're just going to call you JFH.
Well, thank you very much. I am absolutely outstanding, and the last name is pronounced Hastreiter, so just officially for the record. But I'm doing outstanding. I mean, how couldn't I? First off, I just want to reiterate how grateful I am to be here in this magnificent space. And obviously, we've met on the phone or talked before, but last night when we had our event and everything, and just to bring up the idea of doing this today on the spot. So new places, new people, spontaneous things, absolutely outstanding. So thank you guys so much for having me here. I couldn't be more grateful.
And thank you for traveling all the way from New York to be with us.
Absolutely. You bet.
Yeah, it's a long way. So we'll start by just opening up. I like to get you qualified so people understand your experience and why we love to talk to you and want you to talk to our audience. So are you from New York?
No, I'm not originally from New York. In fact, I'm originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In fact, I am blessed enough that I spend about half my time in each city. I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's where I grew up in our family business that we have, and then worked there for 15 years. I was a partner in the family business, and then when I decided to exit there about two and a half years ago, eventually I encountered myself in New York a bunch, had a bunch of friends, got exposed to some networking, and I decided, why not? And I love the city, so I'm like, why not spend half my time there and build my business there and keep building in Wisconsin? And now obviously you see me here as well, so I'm blessed to be able to have the opportunity to live my life in both places right now.
Oh, I love it. So with that being said, man, what was life like being raised in the family business?
It was absolutely awesome. I couldn't have asked for anything better in my life, just on kind of an interesting note to start it out. But, I'm not religious or, maybe I would say spiritual, but somebody told me a long time ago that we choose our parents. And I've heard that. Don't ask me why, but the second I heard that, I instantly believed it because I knew I wouldn't have picked anyone else other than my parents. And there were so many reasons for that, who my mom was, who my dad was. But honestly, growing up in the family business, in that small business entrepreneur environment, getting to see my dad growing up. And not only that, but the beautiful thing, which is going to sound different, is I was so blessed that my dad brought his work home. Mm. And I mean that in so many different ways, whether that was watching him work in our, condo we had in the Dells when we were just little kids and we'd go up there to water ski, and he'd work on a Saturday, and then we would go out, or whether he'd come home from work and things, he'd talk to my mom while she was cooking dinner, or something he'd say walking through the kitchen to his office that we had. I mean, even some of the biggest decisions he ever had, like this one larger company that was going around buying up other accounting firms and insurance companies and stuff, and was venture capitalism. Actually, he ended up not doing that and it was that decision really worked out for him well, and not for everyone else that went along with it. But I remember him even coming home one day saying, what do you think I should do? And let me be clear, I was probably like, I don't remember the exact age, but 13, 14, 15, 16, I don't remember, but even just think about the fact that your dad would come home and ask you such a pivotal question about whether, he should sell out or not. And, if there's one thing about that and everything else that I think is just so beautiful about working in entrepreneur home and growing up in a family business, and why we all start our businesses, even if we didn't grow up in there, is to control our own destiny. Mm. And, even reflecting on this, that's why my dad didn't do it, because when you sell out, somebody else is going to be running your company, however you want to cut that cake. And, for those entrepreneurs, it's all about us controlling our own destiny. In fact, it was interesting. I even saw some clip of Mark Cuban on Shark Tank the other day, and he was just finishing with that line. But I think that's I think, one of the greatest gifts of growing up in a household with a small business and a successful one, is it really allows you as family to write your own ticket. Mm-hmm. The experiences you want in life. And that's the beauty of creating a successful business that is profitable, cash flows, having the goals for what you want to create to life. Because, for business owners, their business is their primary vehicle for creating, the wealth and independence that they're looking for. So it allows you to really create that life you want for the owner and the entrepreneur, their spouse, significant other, their family, their friends, the community, and also, really, to emphasize this, the employees.
Yeah.
And I can't emphasize that enough with our small business we had. I mean, it was always about taking care of our staff and how they were paid or how they were treated, or, what we did for them. And they really were our family. And, one of the literally the best thing for the business is to be successful for everyone.
Yeah.
When a business is successful, profitable, has excess cash flow, and is growing, it can better take care of everyone involved. And I think that's also why, especially everything we teach and talk about is so important as the employer, that you have to take care of your team. I mean, you have to have a quality, well-trained, paid staff, because everything you deliver is through your team. If you're going to have a business, and they're the ones that have to meet and exceed expectations, deliver what you do, meet people's needs and wants. So anyway, I've kind of went on for a while here, but it's such a great gift, because it allows you to just see what it, and not to mention, see what it really takes to make a business work and to grow it. I literally, was born if it was born 5 years after my dad started. And, I probably have memories as early as, early 12, 13. And, so the amount of things I remember from, when he was growing from a couple 100,000 to when I came on board to 4.5 million and grew it to 9.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Have you worked anywhere else besides the family business?
Oh, I have, absolutely. So I worked at McDonald's actually for a number of years, which was great, because I got to see how the most successful franchise in the world operated.
That's a fact.
Right?
That's a fact.
Right. And also there was a small bike shop around us that was called Torque Center. And there was also what happened, though, at a young age when I was about 13 or 14 is, I got the entrepreneur bug. So I started making action sports and BMX DVDs.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think when you're in an environment like your parents' environment and they're running their own business already, to me, I'm a very big fan of your environment. And so if you're in an environment like that, it's probably only natural for you to transition to the lifestyle that you are doing now.
Yes.
And so I had the pleasure of coming to one of your events, and I was very inspired by your energy, by what your communication was, and everything that you were saying was right on point. We even seen a few things that we needed, which is why you're on the show today.
Well, thank you. I'm glad I can help contribute.
Yeah, so no, it was very inspirational. So how did those early lessons with those jobs and working with your parents shape how you coach and train others? Because it was amazing coaching session that you had yesterday.
Yeah, that's a really good question. first off, it gave me all the real life references from having my own business, as I mentioned, to working at McDonald's, to watching my dad, build the business, then to being part of it for 15 years. And not to mention that I got to not only see and be part of that journey from, when I saw it when I was a kid to literally, almost $10 million. And I say that because for anyone that understands the stages and just what that takes to get there, there's a lot of references you have. And then really what happened when I joined our family business at the small business accounting firm, because my passion was really the people and working with the clients, I created some workshops to help our clients read and understand their financial statements. And then we were growing our business and we were working with all these small businesses. And I'm like, well, our clients in these businesses need all these tools, not just reading their financials and budgeting, but how to sell, how to hire, how to interview, how to better understand people, how to build a team, how to understand systems, be a better leader. So I say that because we created this thing in real time. So when we, like the workshop you saw last night, right? We reflected on, especially at that point, that 10 Secrets workshop you saw was one of our first ones. So with that one, we were reflecting on all our years of experience to put those secrets together. And then we have all of that experience and richness to support what those principles are. Because that's the only difference between what sounds like theory and what sounds like real life is your ability to understand how your experience matched up with how those principles showed up in the world and how to articulate that for people to bring it to life for them. So I say that though, because then all the other stuff we developed was in real time as we went through it. Yeah. And then, right, we had all those experience and all those references because, for anyone that's out there in the trainer world, the depth and the richness of what you teach is really based on the quality of your stories, your experiences, and your examples that fill in the blank for people in between the principles and the strategies and the tools and the theories or whatever it is, because that's what brings it to life. And it allows people to understand concretely what otherwise would sound abstract, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
Right. So it was, we started by reflecting on our experience, then packaged it, and we understand what we were putting in there with those examples. And then as I went, I just, I created things in real time. So I was documenting things as we were going through it. Right. So, and then as we kept making it better and did it that way and kept improving things. So, what we're teaching is real life, I think, is what I'm just trying to share with that. And I think that was really, though, the magic of how we put it together, because it's all based on our experiences, conversations that I've had, clients that I've worked with, prospects that I've talked to, people I've met at trade shows. I mean, literally everything we've done or everything we have is based off a question somebody has.
Yeah, and you already answered one of my future questions, which is, how did you and your father arrive at these 10 secrets? I got an idea of that now.
Yeah.
But without giving them all of the 10, secrets at once, can you walk us through the big picture? What are the 10 secrets designed to accomplish for a business owner or an employee?
Yeah, good question. And actually, to kind of tie a bow on that too, for where they came from, is when we came up with our first workshop to help small business succeed. My dad and I just got done reading a book by Jim Collins that was called Good to Great. Anybody that knows that book, right, is they studied Fortune 500 companies about what made those companies great. And in us as a small business accounting firm, I want you just to picture this for a second. When I exited, we had about 825 small business monthly clients. Everything from your corner tavern doing 100,000, maybe skimming off the top, even just to paint the picture of real life, right? Not that we condone that or anything, but let's just, those are the small businesses of the world, some of them. Then there's restaurants and small distributors and daycares and nonprofits, contractors, remodelers. I could keep going down the list. Hair salons, landscapers, advertising agencies, accounting firms, attorney firms, and all of those different industries, literally from 100,000, couple 100,000 up to 10 million.
Oh, wow.
Right. So you can only, in all those, some of those are just solopreneurs up to teams with 50 to 100, 150 people. Sometimes some of them more. We had payrolls with some people up to 700 people sometimes.
Yeah.
So my dad was like, because, small business and Fortune 500 companies there is a different world.
Yes.
So, and, not only at that point too, my dad had successfully year over year for 30 years grown the company. Literally for 45 years, there was not a single year that we went backwards in sales or profitability. We might have a little bit with some of the investments that we made, but but it always went back up, right? So literally for 45 years, we had year over year growth, and we worked with all these businesses, whether we were doing their monthly bookkeeping and payroll or whether we were just doing their taxes at the end of the year. So between our own experience of successfully growing our business from, what it was 0 to 9 million and 50 employees in 4 locations and working with everyone, at that point, my dad just reflected on what did we know that made our business successful in all these other businesses.
Yeah, you created a blueprint.
Yes.
You created a blueprint with the 10 secrets,
yes.
which I love. So I'm going to stop talking because, my partner here, Jimmy, he's scared of me. He thinks I'm the boss, so he won't cut me off. But I know he has a few words in he wants to say. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Jimmy.
Well, and this is an exciting interview. I have 7 questions already.
Oh, wow.
5 minutes.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm not going to be asking all of them. But the first one that I wrote down was that, based on what we witnessed last night, you are a polished educator. How much of that is natural? What is innate?
That's a good question.
To Joseph, how much? And did your father have that same skill set, or did you learn that from your father from watching what he did?
He asked about 5 of the 7 questions in one question. I'm just telling you.
I love it. I do the same thing, Jimmy. So I can totally appreciate that.
My mentor says 1 question at a time, Kobe.
Oh man, we could talk about 10 minutes about just that. It's interesting because I've seen Tony Robbins ask about 3 or 4 questions, right, the same slew. So we won't get down that rabbit hole with the art and science communication on that. But
hey, shout out my podcast mentor, being Bruce.
So to answer your question, Jimmy, first, no, my dad and I had very different gifts. My dad's gifts was financial analysis, systems, processes, the big picture, the details, making those decisions, being an entrepreneur, understanding the systems, the business model and all that. And I definitely got all that from him. That's one reason I went to school for accounting. I went through all of those roles and I have that skill like the back of my hand. That's why I teach the stuff. But my passion is really people and teaching, coaching, leadership, training, empowering people. And actually, so it was really a perfect complement for me and my dad, especially because, if you ask me the number one thing that stressed out my dad that I remember growing up, it was his relationship with the sales director. And for any small business owners out there, or maybe members of your staff, sometimes owners and their salespeople, their sales and operations, and those partnerships can be very interesting. And they can be a relationship of, it's good economically for both of them, but depending on some of those personalities, oh boy. And actually, since my skill set was people and I love that part of it, that's eventually why I gravitated towards the sales and marketing part of the firm. Because honestly, when I got on board with the firm, I just said to myself, we're not going to live with this guy for the rest of our life. And there was, especially in those accounting firms, for anybody that knows, it's very hard for those accountants to maintain any sort of sales manager or director in there, because even most accountants will tell you they're terrible at managing salespeople, having a department, understanding what it even takes, and it is not easy. And we had the most successful one out of the network. So, I went through every seat in the company, but I was also very strategic to start building a relationship with our sales department and eventually over time learning everything in there. So we didn't have to live with him forever. So that actually worked out very well for my dad because my skill set complemented over everything there and he could stay in operations, and it worked very well on that. To answer your next question, because it's actually a very important question in a number of ways, as my skill set, as you said, I was a polished educator. I think we just said thank you very much, because there's been a lot of time and energy that's went into that. And to answer your question, I am very blessed to have what I would call a natural ability to communicate or articulate, or my love for people. With that said, though, as much as we can all have a nature like that, And some people's nature might be even more developed in terms of their talent that's already raw or whatever it is. But I will tell you, I mean, what you're well, one, you could say it's 41 years in the making, but I've been very deliberate over 15 years to make sure that what we teach gets taught in a way that people can get it. And, I think part of my passion around that is my dad struggled with communication. And I also saw accountants struggle with communication, and I saw this gap of being able, between people in all sorts of different ways of life, of being able to explain and articulate what they know to other people. So I think, had just a great passion out of my contribution from my dad and my skill set to develop this of how do we teach people this? How do we articulate? How do we communicate this? I mean, that's one reason I've probably been part of the Tony Robbins environment for 18 years. I mean, Tony's literally probably the best communicator almost in the history of the universe.
Yeah.
And he's all about how do you teach things people in a way that's simple? And if there's one thing my dad definitely also emphasized all the time, it was keeping it simple. And then everything else, though, I mean, I can't even tell you how much time I must have put into the last 15 years. What is the best way to teach that, to communicate that, rethinking about it? Okay, it came up in this coaching session, or was this question, or let's add this piece to it, or that's a good way. So, because it doesn't matter what you have to say if how you say it can't land. And so to me, that's why it's so important to be intentional and strategic about how you communicate. And then I'm lucky enough that it's also my nature. So from developing that skill set for so long, then it just compounds itself, and it
comes naturally.
Yes, right, and yeah, that's right, because it's a naturally developed skill then. Right, which is a little bit different. Anybody can be a great speaker, by the way. They just need to know their style and how to be comfortable with that. But for me, it just comes to life because they both come together like that.
And just to add to that real quick, anybody can be a great speaker. There's one more component. Knowing what you're talking about is usually what makes people more confident.
Yes.
You know your subject, and that would make you a great speaker as well.
Yeah, you have to know your subject. In fact, and especially once you know how to speak and you know your subject, that's where all the freedom comes.
Yeah, facts.
That's what allows you to get up in front of a room, and like what you guys saw last night. That's why I always start with going around the room. What do you guys want to learn today? Because I know all the different things that I can pull from. So once I got that up there, then I can just figure out how I'm going to flow through the conversation. And now we're rocking and rolling. And now I'm not just presenting, but we're talking together. We're teaching and learning from each other. And I think that's the other thing that I learn as much from the people in class that I coach as, I hope they do from me.
And every training becomes different when you operate.
That's right.
As well.
Yeah, because everything's based on them, and a new question comes up or gets asked a new way, and then someone shares a different story or a different perspective on it, and it's just very cool. That's just really where that's the collaboration and the synergistic part of why, especially after COVID, still having that classroom environment, those conversations whether they're virtual or in person are just so important, and great mastermind stuff.
Well, you've answered most of my second question.
Yep.
So, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What I'd written was that you have the personality of a master salesperson. Is that teachable?
No.
Okay.
And I'm going to let me share some specific reasons. And actually, the number one thing I'm going to quote is something I heard Tony Robbins say. It was, I don't remember whatever year the Packers beat the Steelers in the Super Bowl. It was this January, or Business Mastery. I think it was 2012 or 13. Tony Robbins is on the Business Mastery stage, and he says the following: "Great salespeople are found, not created." And I said, man, if that's coming from Tony Robbins, the number one person on human psychology and leadership in the world, I ain't arguing with that. and here's also what I can tell you to back that up, though, because I remember I heard that early on in my career, and I was very blessed to do so. And also understanding my background a little bit. So being part of an accounting firms, and also we worked with a lot of attorneys, so I'm going to give you two references on this, is we were part of our association is for accountants. We were part of at any point in time was firms. There was about 250 firms to about 400. To give you an idea, a large practice in there was considered something that was over 250 small business monthly accounting clients. I can't remember what revenue number you're exactly at that point, but I think it's about I don't think it's more than 2 or 3 million. And then there's medium and small practice, which is even smaller. Like smalls are all like under $1 million. Well, to give you an idea, we were at, when I started, we were at like 625 clients. So we were, and it was only 3, and I mentioned this for a couple of reasons. There was only 3 other offices in the network that were our size. They called us the super large practice. And I also say that though, because if you look at the small business statistics, less than 5% of businesses get to $1 million and less than 0.4% get to 5 million. And only like 4% of businesses ever get to 20 employees or over. And a lot of those large practice firms that were like 250 accounts or 2-3 million or whatever it exactly was, they were all maybe around 20 or give or take some there. But I say that because there was out of any given point in time, out of 250 or 400 offices, there was only maybe 12 or 15 that had a sales department. And I say that because accountants and attorneys, this is a broad brush for the second I want to come back to. They are very introverted by nature. And what they'd love to do is love looking at the details, love the analysis. They love that time by themselves. They love that quiet time. That's the way that they're wired. Now, we also, some of you guys may be aware out there listening, you guys might be aware of it. We use a tool called DISC, right? And DISC is a great tool for understanding people's nature. Like I can look at a DISC profile and know this person is absolutely more inclined to be an accountant and bookkeeper, and this is a sales profile. And I will tell you, when you look at those two, they're
very dynamically different.
They're very dynamically different. And this is where I come back to this point. Can you train the accountant and bookkeeper to be able to communicate and do all that? Absolutely. But I'll also give you another example. Our attorney that we worked with, that was one of the largest law firms in the city of Wisconsin, I think they had over 200 attorneys. He mentioned how he used to train attorneys to try to sell. And I can't remember his exact number, but if he trained like 200 or 300 people, he said if he got 2 or 3 of them to do business development, he was lucky. Wow. Man, if you're out there listening, I hope you take home that number, because I will tell you, when I was in the room listening to that, because I remember this is years ago, and we're sitting here trying to train all these accountants to sell and give them these business development skills and get referrals. And I just remember him saying that number to me, and I was like, that was so relieving. Yeah. And that's why I say it to your question, to really paint the picture. Look, you can teach somebody to be a better communicator, be a better team player, have better leadership skills in the context of their team, their art, their talent, how they fit in there. But if you think you're going to take that type of person and make them a master salesperson that's going to be out in the field, extroverted, doing all that, you are out of your mind. And not only that, you'd be crazy to want to, because their gift is something different. Yeah. And just to finish that, if I can, that's why I come back to Tony's point of that's why great salespeople are found, not created. Because once you find that, then go run with it. Now give them the tools. And to be clear, on the operation side of it, that's why we say everyone's in leadership. And I don't care if it's sales, customer service. We're all trying to lead somebody from A to Z, whether it's a telemarketer leading from some no interest to interest, a salesperson from interest to buying, or onboarding from, the sale to the delivery, or the manager with the team. So, lost my train of thought a little bit on that.
That's okay. That's because you're on a roll.
Yeah. So I think my point on that, to bring that back, was just, in fact, my point on that is you want to train your operations staff on those communication skills, because they're really the same skills applied to a different result. Either, sales is either generating interest or closing it, and onboarding is delivering it, or the manager fulfilling it. So you want to train your team on all those communication and leadership skills. And then that's why we also teach it as a universal language, because then no matter how they're applying it to the conversation, they all can get a better result about who they serve in the organization, whether they're serving prospects or clients or their own team.
Well, you've led a perfect segue.
Well, good.
Into my next question, and I'll pat myself on the back. That question was a great question.
It was.
But in your website, in the EWH University website, you talk about mastering 8 skills of small business success.
Yes.
You start with people,
Yes.
then communication,
Yes.
then leadership, team, sales and marketing, financial, goal setting, and life. I suspect that it was by design that people in communication are at the top of the list.
It was a little bit by design. I don't think 100% entirely. I mean, I say that because there is a natural flow that, because really to be in business, you have to be good with people first. I don't care if you're the organizer just putting themselves out in New York City and you're just starting networking and meeting people and working with your clients and getting some jobs done and delivering that, because you got to be able to communicate and lead through that. Right. So, but then there's sales and marketing, right? And then the cash flow comes in. So, I mean, but the other thing is when I teach those skills, when we do it in class, I ask people to look at it as a wheel, and where is their skill level in each of those from 1 to 10? So they, as an owner, or like an employee that's trying to learn the business owner, like an employee to an employer type thing. It's about looking at where's their skill set on a scale from 1 to 10 on each one of these skills, because that's one of the main things we're teaching. Nobody, even people that just are entrepreneurs, nobody teaches anybody how to run a business. I mean, we don't come out of the room and I can read a balance sheet and P&L and I know a great interview hiring process, right? We all still have to learn that. And back to your question, right? Some owners are more inclined to be that salesperson. Some are more inclined to be operational. So it's a good way for them to look at that wheel and, where are they doing great and where are they not so great and where is the ride rough and where is it smooth? Because if you want to build a better business, you got to be a better business owner. And that's why you got to be constantly learning to give yourself the skill set to be a better owner. How do you market yourself? How do you sell better? How do you close more? How do you price it better? How do you understand how cash flows and speeds up cash flow in your organization? How do you build better systems? How do you keep improving your wheel? So, you got a profitable machine operating with you.
Joseph, I've got a question to ask you, and the question is very short, but the explanation is really long.
Okay. He's pre-framing my answer already.
I'm going to give you the question first, and then think about the explanation in formulating your answer. You must have an amazing brain, because as I'm sitting here and I'm listening, you've got the book smarts, you've got the practical experience of running your own company to go with those book smarts. But the third piece that you have that seems to be so rare is you add common sense to it. And so I want to talk about the way that your various knowledge affects the way you look at problems, try to solve them, communicate with your, maybe offer some tips to employees as to, hey, when we get this is how we think about it. So maybe this is what you want to highlight on. Same with employers. And that should take us through, 2026, maybe 2027.
Maybe 2028 if we're really good.
Yeah, if we really want to analyze it. But really, like the movie Young Frankenstein, we'll just put your brain in a jar and figure out how we're going to do this. And I turn it over to you.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That was such a great compliment. I got lost there a little bit. So, so you're.
Tell me about your thought process.
Yeah.
What are the questions we call?
It's not rhetorical.
Well, it's a really great question, and I really actually want to say thank you for the acknowledgement and the compliment in the fact that you use that word. I've never probably thought of it that way or been that specific, but if there's one thing that I do think about, and I also saw it from my dad, is when it really, first off, common sense is not so common. Okay, let's make sure we get that on the table. And I think that, it probably starts from, and my dad always said that you got to make things simple. Even though my dad wasn't a communicator, just a fun story to help demonstrate this. I went to this one networking event after 5 once, and actually one of the owners of the company happened to be a banker once, and my dad used to know a lot of the bankers. And once he started being the owner, the CPAs know more of the bankers and stuff, right? So anyway, I walk around and I finally meet the guy and I introduce myself. I say, I'm Joseph Hastreiter. And he's like, is your dad Ed Hastreiter? And I'm like, yeah, my dad's at a Hastreiter. He goes, your dad is a legend. Let me tell you, when you were at this bank and 8 out of 10 tax returns were signed by Ed Hastreiter and you needed X referrals, you needed to know him. And then this is what he said, though. He goes, Ed would always explain things with clients. This plus this equals this. So my dad always knew to make it simple. And even like with what Tony does, right? Tony makes it simple. And I also saw the important, and also on this note, I saw the challenges for accountants and attorneys and engineers or anyone that's doctors. It is a challenge for them to figure out how to explain and articulate what they know to the people they work with in a way that's simple. That's not an easy task, to take what is naturally complex information and make it so simple that anybody can understand it. I mean, anything can be complex. The question is, can you make it simple so it's easy to understand and then it's actionable? So I think that's important. That's one of the first things that goes through my mind. But I think the most important thing, that's why I really appreciate the comment on the common sense thing. Because first off, my dad had that. But the other word I would use to bring that to life is practical. You know, my dad, I know, I've heard Tony say it from the stage. We are all very practical people. And I also think that, listen to the following difference on this. When you learn, not educate yourself, but when you really learn these things, and also when you're blessed enough to have the real world experience that brings so much of this to life, and I think the other thing too is, even though like accounting and law is complex, because I've been on both sides of it. I've been on the people side and I've been on the technical side, and there's reasons for everything. And I think that brings a certain practicality or common sense of what has to happen in terms of to grow the company or to solve this problem, or what it takes. So, I'm trying to think of how else to explain that right now, but
let me see if I can't give you a vehicle to
please, yeah.
I'm an employee. I want a raise. I'm walking into the boss's office to go ask for my raise. What's the third rail of asking for a raise that I should never, ever, ever say under any circumstances?
Well, are you talking about as an employee?
Yes.
Well, actually, if you don't mind, that's not the first thing that comes to mind when you ask me that question. Can I tell you where my mind starts on that?
Absolutely.
Because I'm just thinking about what would have happened if someone would have walked into our office for a raise. Now, the great thing that was a part of our company is that the vast majority of our staff was on incentive. So they got a percentage of the billing, and we always were graded fee increases every year. So the vast majority of our staff outside of admin naturally automatically got pay raises every year because they got a percentage of the billing. We'd increase the fees every year to raise revenue, and they'd get that too. And most of our admin staff, we revisited their, things every other year, or whatever it was. But I think the bigger question is, if I'm the owner and someone asks for a raise, I'm thinking, what are they getting paid? What's the market? What's the last time they got a raise? And the next thing is, how valuable is this employee? Because if you're that employee walking into that office asking for a raise, the biggest thing I would tell you to think about is, what's the value you add to this organization?
That's where you start.
Because if you add the value, I'll give you this example. If I know somebody's walking into my office and let's say just for some reason in a year or two they hadn't got a raise, they're getting paid about market, maybe even a little bit more, and they want a raise, and depending on the situation, yeah, maybe. Because you want to think about especially if they are a great employee, you want to keep that person. And if you want to keep people long term, you need to pay them well. Now, to be clear, there could be other people that come into your office that aren't performing well, maybe cause some issues, aren't always on time, aren't always doing their job, aren't up to their production numbers. Because if you're going to come in their office asking for a raise, all you got to be able to do is, what's the value you bring to the organization? And I'm going to bet you 9 times out of 10, that small business owner is going to know the value that you bring. So to me, that's where you always have to start, but I hope that also kind of, Lloyd, demonstrates some common sense approach to that, because you got to make sure you take care of your people, and you also got to look at what's the situation at hand. And I can tell you there was times with really valuable employees, and you know what, they were absolutely worth the additional money that we paid them a year. And we also, by the way, we made sure that we ran our business by a budget, and we knew what our percentage of wages could be, and so forth. So does that help, Lloyd?
That definitely shows clearly into your thought process that the first question you would ask is, what is your value to the organization?
Yeah.
And that is just a great way to look at it. In this day and age, it's really tough.
If I can, Lloyd, just 1 second and on that note, I just for the sake of me being crazy about communication, I may not ask them the question like that. Depending, like, I'll just give you an example real quick, like at our office, like if we know they're a bookkeeper that has to produce X of wages, or an MR to produce X leads, or a manager to do that, or some other things, I might start pulling out that information to say, well, how do you think you're doing on this? Or how do you think you're doing on X? And let's pull up the information and just take a look at it. And then like showing them this is where they are, this is where they thought they were. So that's the art and the dance of how you have that conversation. But all of it revolves around, what's the value you bring. Sorry, I had to just interject that if you don't mind.
No problem at all. For my last question, it's my traditional softball question. Which is always a very easy question, which doesn't require any thought whatsoever. And today I have 2 questions, and you get your choice. You only need to answer one.
Okay.
So my first question is, how should I be investing my portfolio? In stocks, bonds, municipals, back T-bills, government insured? And does it matter how old I am and over what period of time? Or in the alternative, so far the Packers look pretty good. Do you think they'll continue throughout the season?
There's part of my intellectual stimulation that I'd rather answer one, but for the fun of it, I would say, yes, I do think the Packers are going to continue their winning streak. I think them picking up Micah Parsons will probably put them in a whole new league. So it's cool to see.
And I haven't heard you say thank you to we Cowboy fans. I personally called Jerry Jones and said, I would ask you to go ahead and trade Micah to the Packers, because I just love the fact that the last 3 times the Packers came to our stadium, he beat the pants off of us.
Joseph, I keep telling them that it's not a logo, it's a rating.
That is great. What's funny about this is I think this is the one time ever in my life that I can sit here as a Green Bay Packer fan and look across at a Dallas Cowboys fan and say, thank you guys very much. I saw that walking in and I just hadn't mentioned anything at first. So yeah, that's, I was actually at, by the way, the Cowboys Green Bay NFC Championship game in 1996. And
yeah, me too.
Yeah. Anyway, you guys came out better on that one than we did. So then we started winning the year after that. But anyway, that's great.
That's it, Lloyd?
That's all I got.
Well, I'm going to just go ahead and jump in and say that's what I was trying to get you guys to help me remember softball questions, and both you guys failed me.
Oh, that type of question.
So anyway, Jimmy.
That's because your question was too hard for us.
That's funny.
Could we don't have to do this, but Lloyd, can I actually ask you what that first question was again? Because it did intrigue me.
Well, I was just looking at your background in political science and economics, and the 2 biggest factors right now are the Fed and what they're going to do next week.
Oh, and how to invest in their portfolio. I would like.
How should I be investing my portfolio, given the fact that the tariffs are going to come in, and what the Fed's going to do with interest rates? Where should I go?
I don't want to swing at that question, but I want to swing at a different question. Because I think it's an important question, and to be very clear on something, I'm not giving financial advice right now, and I'm not answering where to put your money in your portfolio. What I do want to share with you, though, is the more natural path that people take to financial freedom. Because I think understanding that, Lloyd, helps answer that question no matter what's going on. All right. The first thing is, from a young age, people do need to start saving. You should always put aside 10, 20, 30, 40, sometimes even people 50 or more % into your savings. Next, especially as a small business entrepreneur, you want to be growing your business so you can get earnings and cash flow out of your business. And as you continue to grow the earnings and the cash flow out of your business, you're going to have some natural way that you start investing that money outside of your business. You might buy the building that you guys are in. You might have some lease space that is in there. You might buy a vacation rental property like we have, parents had in St. Thomas, right? That gets some rental income, a couple of weeks a year. It's part of a condo association. That's, probably, very little work with that. But so you start the savings, you build the business, it starts to get earnings and cash flow. Now, to be clear, for some of those people, though, they might have a lot of debt and a lot of things they took on. So ultimately, you're building that business to generate earnings and cash flow. And then you want to invest some of that, you want to start investing that outside the business. And some of that's going to be put in real estate, some of that's going to be put in a 401k or Roth, some of that's going to be put in retirement funds or stocks, or a combination of all those. You're going to also eventually, especially as you build a successful small business, have life insurance in there. And as you build the earnings of the business, pay off debt, start saving money, then start thinking strategically about your investments. You buy the building that you're in. Your business starts paying the rent. It pays off that building. Then eventually you have rental income. Maybe you even have some renters. You buy another piece of property. So then you have the life insurance and your other, however else you're diversified. But I say that because what I just described is the very natural path about how most small business owners and entrepreneurs build their wealth. And the other thing I would just summarize with that question, Lloyd, the most important thing they can do is understand their business. What are the challenges with that business, and where's the upside, and how do they try to hedge the risk so the earnings and cash flow of that business are as predictable as possible. And I also want to be clear, some businesses are extremely volatile to some of those changes depending on what they are. So, if tariffs are going to be involved, you're going to have to be very mindful of your prices and being on your toes with that and how to adjust them accordingly, watching your financial statements. And I think the other thing to remember with a lot of your investment, it is long-term. You shouldn't be looking at it every day, so there's going to be a lot of those ups and downs for those things. And then with your business, you just have to know what are those points of volatility or variables. And you got to try to watch your financials, control your pricing, understand innovation and technology of how you stay up to date. But I hope that answer helps, because it's not about where to put your money in any specific thing, and there's different buckets. There's your security bucket, your risk growth bucket, as I call your play bucket, or what do you want to do? So you got to think about how you're positioning all those chips with your resources that are coming in and building your dreams and destiny that you want.
I love these answers.
And that the other thing I think that's really important about that is, I'm going to use an extreme example, and it might not be the best, but there could be businesses that are people in, it's time to get out. Profit margins are too low. The industry's getting outdated. Like if at some point you were in the TV repair business, it's time to get out. All right. Like, you're not building that business for profitability.
No, you gotta transfer to the YouTube repair business.
Yeah, that's right. Or if you're Blockbuster, right? There are no much more Blockbusters. There is Netflix. So I say that because, and that is the most extreme, hardest thing to do and deal with, especially if you've been in that business long. You know that a lot, but. And by the way, that's not easy to start a new business or close the doors or doing both simultaneously, but there are businesses like that. And I'm just going to give you an example. In our business, and even a lot of service-oriented business, in the accounting business, we were so fortunate to be so almost unprone to economic changes. Even when we had very good quality, so, you could say we had some exposure because if a lot of clients went out of business, but we didn't have that. And even during COVID, we helped most of our clients get PPP money. We even grew, and we knew every year from what we called the growth report. We started with this many accounts. I think our sales department will do this. Our budget and our history show us that we'll do this based on how our sales funnel works. Our drops are normally this. We can reduce them this. Our ending accounts is this, and our average fee every month on, accounting or payroll or year end is this, and this is where we're going to land. I mean, and especially in our line of work, I mean, we could pinpoint our expenses. I mean, and you want to talk about being able to predict and control your own destiny.
Yeah.
Now, not every business is like that.
No.
And, so you got to know your business, or even the restaurant business, knowing your area and what's going to bring people in. And, we had some that adapted to COVID quickly and other ones that didn't. So
I want to jump in real quick and
Yeah.
go back to something that you said a little earlier. You said that Blockbuster, right? You said something about Blockbuster?
Yeah.
We don't say that word in here. I'm a Tower Records.
I'm sorry.
And that was the competition, and so we don't do that. You're familiar with Tower Records. You're old enough, yeah.
Yeah, I'm old enough. Yeah.
Yeah, they beat Blockbuster up all day.
Yeah.
I just had to add that before we
Sure,
go
that's great.
we got to take a break
Okay.
to acknowledge our sponsors. So we're going to do that right now, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about your what we call shameless self-plugs. Self-promotions. So I have a hard time saying that. But we'll be right back after these messages. Thank you guys for engaging.
Today's show is brought to you by the Podcast Excellence Academy community. Whether you're starting your very first podcast or looking to grow and monetize an existing one, the PEA community gives you everything you need: weekly live trainings, step-by-step resources, and a supportive network of podcasters and business owners. Membership is just $20 a month, and it's packed with tools and strategies to help you succeed. Join today at podcastexcellenceacademy.com. Thanks again to the Podcast Excellence Academy community for supporting today's show. Thank you for allowing us time to acknowledge our sponsor. I still have a few questions.
And we can continue the conversation too, so
Okay.
it's fine.
My next question is, can you describe the value of systems in any business environment?
That's
In 30 seconds or less.
yeah.
I'm going to add to that before you answer.
Yeah.
System, in my opinion, we used to use an acronym: save yourself time, energy, and money.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And here's the very simple big picture answer. The reason I kind of just said that is your systems are one of your most important thing in your business. And your systems outside of your people are going to be the number one thing that allow you to control, run, and own your business instead of it controlling and running you. And the only other thing that I would say makes a business, a business more than systems is having consistent sales. Like, one of the ways a lot of people finally know they have a business is if they have a salesperson, or now they have a consistent way of bringing people in the store to generate sales and revenue, but someone else is either bringing them in or can be able to do that. Because otherwise, if you don't have that sales part, you don't really have a business. You kind of have a job, because all the revenue and stuff is dependent on you. But I would say systems are the next most important thing, just off the top cuff here in this conversation, because if you don't have systems, running that business is going to be constantly work. In fact, one of my favorite metaphors, actually, this I got from Keith Cunningham. Some of you may have heard that name. Some of you may not. He's Rich Dad from Rich Dad Poor Dad. And, he talks about, I don't know if he's this exact lead-in, but a business without systems, I think his word is a bunch of crankers, right? And you're just going in there cranking. You have no way to efficiently do things. You got to jump in and do everything. Everything is in your head, or, there could be a thousand other ways to do it. But your systems allow you to just have grace running your business. Okay, we're hiring that new employee. There's the new hire manual. There's the training checklist. When Andrea and I go and do a program, here's the checklist of what we need. Here's our PowerPoint. Here's the handout. Here's our marketing material. Here's the Eventbrite, right? And we can just run. But all of those things are just different systems that you build as you go. So you don't have to think about running all the different parts of your business. You got the tool or the checklist or the manual or the procedure or the training guide or the handout or whatever it is to make it simple. And if you don't have systems, because your systems and your team are ultimately what you leverage for. So if you don't have that, you have no leverage. Everything in the business is going to be dependent on you. Systems are the key to making things easier in your business. And having the systems are the wheel. The systems show you how your business model operates. The systems are the key behind the predictability and the consistency of the earnings and cash flow of that business. And then the only question is, can you back up and be the leader of those systems and that team and those people to be able to keep that going? But you don't have systems, good luck. I mean, that was one of the best things with my dad, especially in an accounting firm, because, as I say, like if you're IMAX, your systems are different than an accounting firm, right? But in an accounting firm, and even our executive administrative assistant, her husband worked at UPS, talk about their rivalry with FedEx, by the way. But you talk about the systems that you must have in those businesses. I mean, you think if you're UPS and 1% of your packages arrive at the wrong place,
right,
the problems you got? So, and especially in accounting where we had to be all about quality, we had to make sure with how, bank statement stuff came in the door, the bookkeeper receiving it, putting the financials together, the manager reviewing it, maybe going to the bookkeeper's thing, getting that information to the client. There's a lot of places for gaps there. And we also wanted to make sure that the quality of the stuff that went out the door was really solid, which a lot of accounting firms aren't known for having. But anyway, that's a long way of saying systems are everything. You got to have them. They make everything easier, and they will be, because actually just on that note right now, to demonstrate this point as a final bow, was just this last Monday in New York, actually. I'm working with an advertising agency, about 20 employees, and they've done a great job of being in business for a long time. I think it's 20 years or more. And but up until about 18 months ago, she had no systems and no manager supervisors. So she's literally, everything is through her.
Wow.
Everything is through her. So I actually got referred to this client because it's actually the marketing company I've used for years at our firm and now with me for my own business. And she's done such a good job of growing her own business to 20, 25 plus people and a couple million that she now also helps other agencies build their own business. So she's been working with her over the last 18 months to put the systems in place. So that's why she also brought me in then to train her 3 key people and her on those particular leadership skills. But I use that as a great example. And, even in our business, we were always looking at those systems and those business models because we came from a franchise. They gave us that business model. So for us, luckily, we just got to keep it up to date. But, so anyway, this new client that I'm working with, I got referred because she's been working with her for 18 months on the systems. And now I'm working with them on the leadership skills because that's ultimately what they're going to do to leverage and make running everything easier as they start to document these things. As simple as it even was, is like she was talking about how when they have to go resize their banners for a lot of their ads and all like these different steps to it, right? But eventually there's some easy ways, especially with ChatGPT, to capture those systems and stuff as you go. But that's just to demonstrate the example. So she's been running this organization with no systems and no team for all those years. And the reason she's finally doing this is she's overwhelmed. She's burnt out. This is why we often say go from burnout to breakthrough, because these things are going to take the work out of it for her. It is so much work and stress and energy and effort. We do not have the brain power and capacity to think about all those things in our business. And as we grow, especially to 20 employee and all those moving parts and all those customers, I mean, you take anyone's average to-do list in a day, it's 20 to 30 items. Maybe in a week, it's 140 to 210. And then you're the owner with all the emails and the key staff and the people reporting to you, and you don't have any of those systems. I mean, you're already overwhelmed listening to me, right? And then you're doing that for 10 or 15 years.
Right.
It's even like my landscaper I have. We did a podcast with him, and he's been in business for 15 years and now he's doing well, but he's put so much time and energy into his business, it's burnt him out and he hasn't had that life. That's why I say, like, your systems are either going to allow you to run and control and lead and own your business, or your business is going to devour you. As Keith Cunningham says, mama and papa will die of exhaustion trying to take care of that baby. And that's the thing. A business without systems is an infant. You need a business that can run itself. That's when you got a mature company. If you can step in and out of it and it can do its thing. Now, there's some qualifiers that if you're a doctor, you're the talent, right? That's a little bit different, but you get the overarching point. You got to have systems. My dad would be loving hearing this conversation right now.
Thank you.
Hey, so we love hearing this conversation right now.
Well, thank you.
My segue question into the shameless self-promotion portion of this show is, within EWH University, you had mentioned nonprofits before. Is there a nonprofit lane for education within EWH?
We don't have a specific lane for nonprofits, but I do think all of our programs we've developed are for any really organization, how to better run their business or organization, right? Because it's all about how to better understand their financials, how to better budget. Even nonprofits got to know how to look at their financials, right? They're a little bit different. I've, worked on some nonprofit boards. I've helped them understand their financials. Nonprofits still have to hire, interview employees. In fact, one of my best clients and one of my best friends, she has a nonprofit daycare. I've trained her teachers twice and worked with her on a bunch of stuff. So the principles just apply to the nonprofits a little bit differently. And we do have things in our programs that are industry specific in some ways, but that's also what I really like about what we do is anybody can take what we do and use it to improve their organization. And I actually always think it's good because one of the greatest gifts an organization can have is like if they have a landscapers association or a place that works with daycares, or like another person I brought on my podcast, he's got a publication in Milwaukee, right? And he gets with other people like that, but it's also good to have this other stuff that's outside your box and just how to, improve things overall and to be able to bring it over, which is really important. So what was I tying a bow on that with the question? I'm sorry.
I'm not sure, but we're going to move right into the shameless self-promotion.
Okay.
So this is the portion of the show where we invite you to say whatever you want to promote yourself, to promote EWH, to promote anything that you do, and let us know how our audience can get in touch with you should they need your services.
Absolutely. So the first thing that you should do is go to EWHUniversity.com. And when you land there, the first thing I want to encourage you to do is schedule a discovery call with us. We talk to business owners every single week, ask them what's going on in their business. We've got a couple questions to ask, and then just learn about where you're at. And then we connect you with the thing that's going to best support your growth at that point in time. So that's a great place to start. Additionally, if you're on our website, your first course is free and on us. So if you see that on the homepage, you can click to that. You can go to that page. If you use code ROCKNROLL, ROCKNROLL, no spaces, no apostrophes. It's on the website too, by the way. You can access your first course for free. That's a great place to start. But the other thing I want to mention is if you go to the website and you're on the top menu and you go to Growth Station, that is our one-stop shop with all of our free resources. You can schedule the discovery call there. You'll see that right there. You can access a course from that page through something too. There's also some self-assessments you can take to better learn about where your business is at. Because when we often say to get started with us, Jimmy, we say there's 3 steps. Schedule the discovery call, complete a self-assessment, and then we're going to get growing your business because we're going to figure out where you're at and then connect you with the tools to be able to help you start growing. So a lot of times we like to have people take that self-assessment because if they take 10 or 12 minutes and we ask them a couple questions like industry, years in business, employees, sales volume, biggest challenge or goal, because with them taking that 15 minutes, it's like we talk to them for an hour and a half. And now it's like we know where their business is at, we know what they need, we know what they're great at, and we know where their gaps are. So then we always connect them to start with one of our free resources, some great things to get them going. But then we're looking at our online programs, our group coaching, or one-on-one, and what's the best way to support their growth. And we're just simply looking at where to start and getting them started with one of those things and just learning one thing on the time and putting their learning and growth plan in place so they have the path to know how to learn and grow as an owner so they can continue to learn about their business and be able to grow their business. So if you go to EWHuniversity.com, go to Growth Station, it'll connect you to all those resources. You'll be able to set up the discovery call, get rock and rolling on that. And you'll also on that page, by the way, find our executive summaries, our podcast they can listen to, recommended reading, and more. So it's our one-stop shop. It's called Growth Station for a reason. It's your launch pad to grow your business and set up your discovery call with us so we can take off together and connect you to the tools and resources to put you on the learning path to continue to grow your business, because we want to be with you for the next 3 to 4 decades.
Great.
And what you're going to need to learn and grow with yourself and your team and continue to reinforce or learn anew is going to be a lot of things. So between our online programs, group coaching, and one-on-one, there's a lot of great solutions, but it all starts at EWHuniversity.com. Go to Growth Station, set up the discovery call, and let's rock and roll together.
Perfect. And I want to say thank you so much for being on our show. This has been a great show. We could do 4 or 5 more.
I'll come back anytime. I
so much to offer.
I have had so much fun with you guys, and I just really I have really enjoyed this conversation. Your questions have been absolutely amazing. It's just so great to think about these things from different angles and be stimulated. Such a great setting, and I had just so much fun with you guys, and I couldn't be any more grateful that this got to just happen and kind of present itself. Talk about the universe working for today.
We really appreciate you stopping by and having this conversation and as well. So it was great, and thank you.
Is Lloyd still on so he can say thank you as well?
Yes, I just got him back.
All right. So we were just saying goodbye. You have any parting words or questions, or not questions? We don't want to go down that route. Would you like to say thank you?
I do have one parting thought if you care to comment on it.
Sure.
I always say if you can't measure it, you can't manage it.
Amen.
That's a fact.
That's the God's honest truth. You got to be able to figure out what to measure. And that's an interesting learning curve for some of us, but there is always a way to measure things, I promise you. But you cannot manage and lead what you do not measure. Amen.
Implement systems.
Yep, that's right.
Jimmy?
I said thank you. I am so grateful for you to be on the show and for you to have traveled so far to see us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we've had some great success with getting great guests on here like yourself. It's an attraction, in my opinion. I think that you're teaching people how to attract with those 10 secrets. And for me, it's better to attract than to chase.
Oh, amen.
And so if we had a concept where I learned how to do my marketing and branding, that we wanted to, present you as a Tiffany box, because anybody would want to get whatever's in there. They don't care. But most people present themselves as a brown paper bag. And, some people may want that, they may not. But if you walk up with the Tiffany box and say, hey, do you want this? Everybody's going to be attracted to it just because of the box.
God, I love that. Thank you for that reference. That's wonderful.
Yeah, so with that, we are going to get out of here. Thank you for joining us. This was a great show. We had a great guest. I learned a lot on the show, which we love. If I'm learning, that means you're learning. So thanks for showing up with us today. Engage. If you like the information, please share and come back and see us next week for another great guest. This is Great Employees Matter. Greatness, excellence, motivation. Always be a gem, and we'll see you next week.